Hey everyone, welcome back to Unplug with Mel. I'm your host, Mel Mosier. And wow, it's been a minute since our last episode, but we're back in action. And I couldn't be more excited to share this special guest with you. Joining me in the studio today is Steven Sundquist, someone who I connected with through LinkedIn. And let me tell you, this conversation was meant to be. Steven has an incredible story to share. From struggling with addiction to finding recovery, he has transformed his life and discovered his true purpose, opening a private detox center to help others who are walking the same path he once did. His journey is one of vulnerability, accountability, and a deep personal growth. Now he's reaching out to make a difference in the lives of those who need it most, all over the United States. Even further, get ready for an awe-inspiring conversation that I know will touch your heart. So, you ready? Okay then, let's dive in. Okay, so Steven, welcome to Unplug with Mel. It is Steven Sundquist. Yes. We met through LinkedIn. We have a fellow friend, Javon Glasgow, and you reached out. I'm so thankful that we got connected because there's a lot of what do you call it when it's through LinkedIn messaging, like messaging tag?
Yeah, right.
But you followed up and we got it on the calendar and we're here tonight. I do give a warning to our listeners. It is very windy out here in West Texas and Mr. Steven's out in Florida. So I love technology. And I love that it can get out to everyone. What I like to do for our listeners is for you to give yourself the bio briefly, where you're from, back in the days in AOL, ASL. No, just kidding. Yeah. But, briefly say who you are, where you're from, and why you're on Unplug with Mel here.
Mm-hmm. So my name's Steven Sundquist. I'm from the Tampa Bay area in Florida. I found myself addicted to substances at one point and kind of uprooted my life in many ways. To where I'm at today, I currently own and operate a drug and alcohol detox. I've become an interventionist and I've helped save thousands of families' lives. And it's been a purpose and a calling for me that has been instilled within me ever since the day I turned my life around.
Guys, we're in for a treat here. Well, thank you for your vulnerability to come on and tell your story. Our whole goal here is to tell your story to inspire infinite growth. So we'll dive right into our first question. And it's the census of your journey from setbacks to comebacks. And right there in that bio of, changing your life around from once an addict to now owning a recovery center. Let's dive into that and, just take us down memory lane here.
Sure. So, grew up in a loving middle-class family where, basically all of my needs were met. My childhood was normal, filled with the warmth of the love of my parents, instilling good morals in me, had a stable home. They're still married to this day. We attended church on the weekends. But something that was a little bit different is that faith was never really discussed in my home. I'm just going to bring you to a little story in my life where things kind of changed for me. So I was about 12 years old and we attended church on the weekends, right? And the pastor of the church, which I won't name any names for anonymity purposes, but my parents and his family were very close. They had a child that was my age, went to the same school. So long story short, his wife, who was at church greeting everybody at the doors every day, she's nowhere to be found. And people are like, where's so-and-so at? And nobody really had an answer. And then a week or two goes by and then the pastor from the church gets removed. So we found out through the local news that they were having marital issues and he put a hit out on his wife and had her murdered. And for me at that time of my life where I didn't really understand the conception of faith, I realized that I put my faith in a human power, right? Anytime you do that, you're always going to be let down. So I viewed this man as God, the godly figure. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but that was really like a huge letdown. And, after that for me, my grandmother passed away and it was just like, one thing after another. I was just holding so many resentments towards God, and it was just, like a self-destruction course of the next 15 years of my life. So throughout my youth, I always felt like something was missing. I always compared myself to other friends that I had that were well off, or just thinking that if I had nicer things, like my life would be better. I was maybe in second grade, my parents had me tested for the gifted program. I passed and started to change, right? And I was constantly comparing myself to, the kids in the class, right? And just I felt like if I acted out and I made people laugh, it would be received in a way where people would like me, so seeking comfort in that, always acting out, finding solace in that, always wanting to be the center of attention. It was just like, I never really understood who I was, until years later, I realized what the problem was. It was that I was presenting as a fabricated version of myself to so many other people, not truly fully understanding who Steven Sundquist was. For instance, just talking to others about what I was feeling inside. It just that hole in my soul, just lacking, perspective and really rooted in faith. But that hole in my soul drove me to, search for things and material possessions, right? Money, relationships, and, once again, putting it in a human power. And anytime you do that, it's always going to let you down. What I will tell you, though, is I really found myself on the baseball field. And that was where I found my peace and my joy and my comfort. And that's who my identity was. I was Steven, the baseball player. If you asked anybody, that was who I was. So obviously stood out, was in the local papers often, setting records, accomplishments for, batting average records at my high school, just always standing out. And I always wanted to be the center of attention, but I always cut corners, always, in the classroom. I wasn't the best student. I was always the procrastinator, last minute assignments, cheating on tests, you name it, I did it. So I was about maybe 14, 15 years old when I had my first drink. And that was like the aha moment, right? Where I was like, wait, like this is what I've been missing, and I could be the life of the party. I could be the center of attention, and people liked me. And I thought that's what the case was. But, that continued for the weekends, up until I was about 17 or 18 years old when I hurt my elbow pitching. And that was when I was prescribed pain medication. And that was when my life took a turn for the worst. And for the next 10 years of my life, I struggled and essentially suffered in silence. And it only took 30 to 45 days to really develop that chemical dependency, just taking them as prescribed, and most athletes go through this. A lot of people that have injuries go through this. I see this all the time. It's so common in the field of behavioral health. I hear the same story. I hear my story all the time, so it's just one of those things that gives me the ability to relate to someone to where they feel comfortable in order to share what they're really going through with me. And I just like to make myself vulnerable for others, just so that they can see, like, look, if I can do it, you can too.
It takes that stigma from being a guy, right out the gate. I'm talking about it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can talk about it.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It's a little difficult when it's a female trying to get a man to open up and stuff. I was a product of my dad fell to the Vicodin soma epidemic in the early 90s from a accident. Drunk driver hit him. So none of it's like his fault, but as prescribed, all of a sudden you cannot continue as prescribed. In your mind, it tricks you thinking that you need them again because you're still in pain.
Right.
And then you go up and up. I didn't understand that as a child. I just thought, wow, he seems to need a lot of medications just to get around. I had no knowledge until I was probably about your age at this, 18, 19, going, oh, he's got a problem. And that's concerning in the world because it's still happening to this day. It's 2025. Yeah. So in your journey with your setback, when you realized you had a problem, what were some things that really happened to realize I I got to stop this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the problem. And what were some steps that you did to turn that around?
Yeah, so I think, obviously throughout the course of my addiction, my moral compass shifted. I did things against my moral wills. I became a totally different person. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde with me, and it was just like I could be, this person to this, group of people, and that person to that group of people. It was just like I was a chameleon everywhere I went. So, obviously over the course of the years, the drugs changed, the way I was doing them changed, the frequency and the amount changed, and I found myself overdosing twice in a day, and that was the last time I ever used. And it was so hard for me to just be vulnerable with another person and just admit that I didn't know what the heck I needed to do, and just be in that place of desperation to change, and that stuff fades so quickly if there's not a plan in place. And I see that all too commonly with a lot of the people that we help, and really it just came down to being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and just wanting to live a better life. And, once I made that decision to go get help, thankfully my employer at the time granted me FMLA, and it just took a little courage just to go in the HR office and just say, hey, listen, this is what's going on. And they were understanding. And I went off to treatment and stayed there for about 90 days. And that was when my life really fully started. But it just took that courage just to not even care about an expectation of what may or may not happen. I just knew the most important thing was my health, and I needed to get better, because anything, my job, my bills, my place, all that stuff's not there if I'm dead, so it was a wake up call that I needed. And fortunately I survived, whereas many don't get that opportunity to ask for the help.
I want to highlight this part in your journey because you had the courage to go to, HR and
Yes.
admit that you're the problem and it's going to cost the company, you in the seat that you're hired to do.
Yeah.
But like you just said, if you don't do this, you're dead.
Yeah.
And then you're going to refill my seat anyways.
Yeah.
When you finished your rehab and everything, did you still have a job?
I did. I went right back to work. I was healthy. They were like, who the hell are you? You look totally different. I was a top performer in the company. I made the President's Club my first year, top in sales, and they valued me, and I ended up working there for another year after I came back from treatment. And, then I switched fields into behavioral health. I just found a calling. I just wanted my voice to be heard. And it was time for me to grow, and obviously, I'm super grateful for everything they did for me. They'll always hold a special place in my heart, for allowing me the opportunity to get the help that I needed at that time.
Oh, I mean, they're part of your story.
Oh yeah. Big part.
Had they just not give a dang,
yeah,
or didn't follow the law, FMLA,
yeah,
and did anything to not uphold in integrity, you would have still gone to rehab because you were that was it. You had to go.
Right.
But I talk about this because in my day job, when I'm not playing podcaster, is HR. And I love hearing that it works.
Yes.
People are like, it's always evil. HR won't benefit. And I'm like, did you go have a candid conversation?
Right.
Did you tell them what is going on? By law, they have to do things. By law, they have to say things. But ultimately, they do care. And that your job is protected to an extent.
Right.
And of course, now they always saw you as someone under the influence. They didn't know that. And so when you came back sober and you're still now performing, but healthier, they're like, yeah, who is this guy? We've never met this guy. It's a new employee.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that too in the workforce too, because when we hide our demons, our struggles, I mean, really, we're really good at it. Chameleon, you said chameleon.
Oh yeah.
We're all busy doing our own thing. Your CEO, your HR, your coworkers that are in the same cubicle with you. They're not going to tune into you if you don't want them to tune into you.
Right.
And so when you come clean and say, I have a problem, now everyone's like, okay, how can we help? You're not going to get someone related going, oh, just go away.
Right.
They'll do what you got to do.
Right.
Majority. If you've got people in your life doing that, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Get rid of them, because you're not going to heal in that circle. You're not going to get better in that circle. So when we move forward in your journey, obviously you turned it around. You went to rehab. You worked for another year. Now you're launching and you're getting involved into behavioral health. Take me down that journey. Did you get this off the ground?
So I mean, I started out at kind of a ground level entry position in the behavioral health space. I started as an alumni coordinator, and my role was just to connect with past and current patients that have gone through and still are successful and want to have a platform to where they can stay involved and have an additional line of support. And I put events together, and I developed a huge following, and I just fell in love with the job. And it was one of those things where I was never looking at the clock wondering when it was going to be 5. It was just like an all day thing, and I didn't care. It was just like, this is what I'm meant to do. To where I'm at today. So I put a business plan together in 2020 to, I wanted a small, intimate detox setting, because in my experience, that's where the healing takes place. It's more individualized care, more one-on-one stuff. And that's really where the healing happens. Right. So obviously COVID hit, and then we had a couple of hurricanes back to back, and it kind of halted the plan. And then a beautiful opportunity presented itself in early 2023, and we jumped all over it and launched it. And there was so much fear behind that. I put the last bit of savings I had into opening this, and there was a point where we were barely just making payroll, literally paycheck to paycheck type stuff. I mean, that's how scary it was. But I mean, we just had faith, and I kept doing the next right thing, just putting focus on the patients and their well-being and doing right by them. And it always works out if you do that.
I want to kind of do a timeline thing here. Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you get out of rehab?
2017, March 1st was when I went in, and I got out about May, 15th, 2017.
So 2017, you work for that company for another year. So
Yes.
2018, you leave. Then you work for this liaison position and stuff like that. You do. How long did you do that before you got this chance?
So I worked there for about 2 years, and then I went back home to Tampa, and I started working for a local facility that was growing and wanted to expand and open more locations. And obviously I have a very good footprint in the Tampa Bay area. A lot of people know me, know my story. I've spoken for a lot of the high schools for Red Ribbon Week. It's a passion of mine. I've spoken with the governor's wife on a platform which is called The Fact Your Future. Now every year during Red Ribbon Week, there's a 5-minute presentation of my story for the kids. So it's just been such like an amazing. Yeah, it really is. I've done many news segments. I've had the news come to my parents' house and get her side of things as an enabler. It's just been overwhelming, with the amount of support that we've received. And it just feels right,
Well, the key in the timeline for the audience, the listeners to get is, so 2017, you're rock bottom.
Yeah.
2023, you now have an opportunity to launch your own company. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
There's small wins, and there's small setbacks, and there's getting back up every day, and it's choosing to stay sober. It's choosing, if I have a dream of mine in the background, I want my podcast to do really well one day, right?
We're going to blow it up.
It's the expectation, or even at your beginning journey, the comparison was so-and-so, whatever. But you had to work to get to being the entrepreneur and the founder of your recovery center today. And you're about to, I guess, you're over 10 years now, because, 2017 to 24 or 7 years. So 8 years. You're at 8 years this year. And now obviously it's 2025. Are you still paycheck to paycheck? Are you doing pretty good?
I mean, things have changed. Obviously, for the first year, we put a lot of the money back into the company, but, things are, I'm in a different financial category than I've been in, and it's a comfort thing, but I've realized that money doesn't make you happy, it really doesn't. Mm-hmm. Yes, it makes things more attainable, more easy for you to, focus on what's important in life. But I've just realized that the true peace and joy I have in my heart is just those success stories of just people getting it that you least expect it, or just, seeing the families come together. I mean, in the intervention line of work, so we opened an LLC in 2019 doing interventions after me and a couple of my close friends that are in recovery got sober together. We got credentialed as certified interventionist, and, we opened an LLC, and that was just super impactful. We would fly to like Sacramento, Washington State, New York, Chicago. We were in a different city every weekend, just meeting with families, going over a game plan. How are we going to address this? How are we going to get your loved one help? And just going over those hurdles and obstacles with them. And just, man, it was such a cool experience, and I kind of dialed it back once we opened the detox with the intervention business. But there have been so many setbacks and hurdles along the way, so many things that could have taken me back out, despite, certain circumstances, relationships that have gone bad, or, whatever it's been, and it's been, how I look at it today. It's like, I understand that, through pain comes a blessing every single time. That's been my experience, and anytime there is some sort of setback, I can look at it from a different lens today, instead of thinking, why me? Like, okay, I want to be uncomfortable today. Like, throw something at me. I know there's going to be something on the other side. That's just how I have to look at it.
Well, it's usually a blessing or a lesson.
Yes, exactly.
And the lesson from the setback is because you had to go through that.
Right.
I think with you being an entrepreneur and a business owner, and also in recovery, I mean, running a business is stressful.
It is very stressful.
Anyone can be like, okay, I want that drink at the end of the day. Woo, what a day.
Yeah.
So what are some of the tactics you've done while running your practice that has helped you stay in recovery?
Obviously self-care is so important in this line of work, with my days going sometimes from 8 a.m. till 11 o'clock at night, full speed ahead, no lunch. Some days, just, self-care is so important, whether that's physical activity, the gym for me, or hitting the golf course, or, listening to meditation, or, reading scripture, or, focusing on like a morning routine is so huge. I have to have a morning routine. And, in the times where like I'm rushed and I feel like, I miss my prayer in the morning, or, I just feel it, and I'm just like, all right, slow it down, like put everything on pause, do your thing, no matter where you are. I'm in the truck, I'll pull over, whatever, and it's just, obviously there's some days where I fall short. I'll be honest. I'm human. We're all human. We're not perfect. There's days where, I'm off. But what I can tell you is that I have come to terms with being at peace on those days that I don't have it, and I realize that, and I listen to my body, and I realize that, okay, let's just get through the day, do what you can, and don't stress yourself out. And it always seems to work.
If someone was listening in right now and is battling, whether they want to go into sobriety, they have an addiction, they know it, their life is upheaval, they have nothing really centering them to be in existence on this planet, what would you say to them right now?
You're not alone. First of all, there's ways that, someone can get help, discreetly, anonymously. There's so many platforms these days for, telehealth providers where you don't have to leave your house, or, companions that will come into your home. There's just so many levels of care these days where, listen, if you're in a place where you're suffering in silence, like I was, just make a call, be as honest and thoroughly honest as possible with one person, whether it's, a friend, family member, someone, a counselor. Like, I have to have that in my life, or else I'm not going to make it, and I need to be transparent and have the ability to be honest with at least one person in my life at all times. But, what I would say, if someone's struggling, I would be here for you, personally. Anybody could reach out to me at any time, but just find that person that you feel comfortable enough just to share a little bit of truth and where you're at, because you never know. I've spoken to so many families where, that person, made plans to get help in a week or a month or whatever, and it was just too late. Just got to reach out. You have to.
So as we talk about people, we're finicky people, right? We're finicky, our emotions and everything like that. But how critical for you in this journey was the support system, the people that were coming into your life when they were coming, whether in the past when you were doing what you knew you weren't supposed to be doing, that circle, and how it transitioned into the circle you had in recovery? Obviously, they're not the same. You might have a few that still support you, but if they're not an addict, or if they were an enabler, or how did that change for you?
Yeah, so there are actually surprisingly a few, maybe a handful of people that I was, in active addiction with that I'm very close today, and they have transformed their lives as well. And a lot of them are in this space as well, and they found the same calling as I have. But obviously, yeah, my priorities have changed. My drive for self growth and improvement and just bettering myself in many ways. And I always try to be a student of life, however that looks. Just listening to people that have overcome struggles, or are more knowledgeable than I am at certain things, and I just try to be a sponge, like we were talking about, and just acknowledging any type of self-help that I can get, or guidance. And going back to Javon, I met him at the crisis center in Tampa Bay, and there was just this aura about this man. You just felt it. You just wanted to be around him, and he's been a great man to have in my corner. We don't speak as much as I would like, but that's on me. I've met a lot of strong individuals throughout my recovery journey that you just won't ever forget, based on, it could have been one phrase they said, or just how they carry themselves. You can see, they don't even have to say it. You just know they're good-hearted people doing the right thing. And that's just the type of people that I want to surround myself with today, and just, get acquainted with those individuals that are striving to be better each and every day.
Javon, I mean, for the audience, if you haven't, he's on the podcast too, y'all. Just shout out, go back to season 1. He's in there, because the weekend that I was deciding to launch this, I got to hear him speak. And I was like, not even just a foot out of not wanting to do this, not go through with it, just scrap it all. I was like a foot and a half. Like anything happening that weekend, I'd be like, I'm over with. Done. I'm not going to do it. And in his training, he picked on me to go up front, and he has that energy. He brings out, and I'm an introvert, and people don't know that until I get to know you. Like, I need that safe place.
Exactly.
Come out of my shell, but he didn't care. Like, he's going to make you do what makes you uncomfortable. And we still talk to this day. And that was back in 2023. And obviously my podcast launched. And I have him to thank that he was the last person in that season of doubt and fear and shoulda, coulda, woulda, that I felt like, just, you know what, even if this doesn't turn out the way I think it's going to turn out, or whatever, I got to give it a shot, or I live in that regret. And so if anyone, I'll put some notes in here when we end, how to reach out to you if you're needing help, but also if they want to go meet who we adore, if he listens into this, just know, Javon, we adore you.
Yes, we do. Incorporating, the importance for asking for help for those that need it in the workplace.
Yeah. So let's talk more on that.
Okay. So, for me, right, with my experience with, going to HR, I find so much joy and just, I like educating, and I like being an example of a product that works. Throughout the course of the last 7 years of being in behavioral health space, I've connected with thousands of EAP coordinators, human resource connections, and just, educating them on the services that we provide, and just being that safe place. And it's just been a wonderful experience, just being able to have these conversations with these professionals, and just, letting them know, like, hey, listen, I've been through this, and I know how to do it. And we would walk them through every step of the way, working with the employer to provide updates, and just, I just love what I do, and I just hope that, maybe through my story, we can reach that one person like we just discussed, and if we do, then this is a success, and that's really all it's about. So if you are, struggling, and you have a career, and you're, worried that you're going to lose your job, because of your addiction, or, whatever it is that you're going through. A lot of mental illness is really on the rise. A lot of people are struggling with depression, anxiety, traumas, you name it. It's just really on the rise. Just know that there is help out there. And, like Mel was talking about, there's so many employers that are forgiving and understanding, based on your experience and what you're going through. And you just need to be honest, right? And most of the time, if you are a valued employee, they will retain you, and it's going to cost them more to hire someone new and train them rather than it is to invest in getting you better. So that was the story with me. And I love going to employers and just, sharing my experience and just being a resource for anyone possible. I wish I worked for you back then, Mel.
I'm thankful, like you have your calling in this, and I love my podcasting world too, but HR found me, and that's why I decided to do the sponge part, because as we said, we hear our stories through other people, but no one's talking about it. So someone's got to set the standard and start talking about it.
Yeah.
And during COVID, that taught me. Yep. We can isolate and deal with our crap until it's to the breaking point. And you said it. What's the alternative if you break? If you're done, what happens?
Exactly. There's nothing.
You're gone. You're not here on earth.
Yep.
And the people that do love you, that do not know how to help you per se, or even your children or your spouses or whatever, they're like, I just wish they would have said, how can we help them? And they would have. They can't read your mind. They don't know. And it's more than just alcohol addiction or drug and alcohol. It's mental health. It's just getting out of the bed in the morning type of thing. But we can't read your mind. So this podcast here is like, okay, we're giving you some tools and some resources, but you still have to do the action. You still have to walk in that door and or call the front or look at the benefits packet that you're supposed to be given at new hire and all of that other stuff. But let's move back into the importance of your journey. What is obviously the victory here, and part of it is being sober and in recovery. But let's talk about like some victories in the last 7 years where you realized, because I have a clearer head and my emotions are better and I am sober, I'm succeeding, I'm not drowning. What do you got a few of those there?
One of the most powerful moments I was ever a part of was during an intervention. This older woman lost her husband maybe about 4 weeks prior to the intervention taking place. She was a bad alcoholic, couldn't stop drinking, and just couldn't deal with the fact that her husband passed away. So her son contacted me and we went over a game plan. And, I've always had this intuitive way about me with just reading the room and being able to see what needs to be done at a split second, notice. Right. So when we got to this little town outside of Chicago, something hit me. It was like, you need to do the intervention at the cemetery. And let me tell you something, that was I have the chills talking about it. She cried, and man, that was one of the most strongest moments of faith I've ever been a part of, and just feeling it come full circle and just feeling the impact that was the right decision that we made in the moment, and we gathered there around his tombstone, and, she was at peace for the first time since he passed, and she accepted the help, and her son and daughter-in-law were there, and her sister was there. And it was just such a moving moment. And, if I hadn't made that adjustment when I did, I don't know if she would have gone, and she was so stubborn and she wanted to kill herself. She was done living too, and we just filled her up with words of encouragement right when she needed it the most. And the location was just perfect. And, she was so hesitant to meet us in the beginning, but man, that was really, really powerful. But there's been so many things that have happened that is just like eye-opening God moments of just like, wow, like this wouldn't be possible had I not gotten myself better. Right. And just like remembering where I came from, at one point, and just using my experience to fuel others and just instill hope in families that are hopeless and broken, just like I was, and I've always given my mom's number out to families, just for an additional line of support. And it's just been a very rewarding last 7.5, 8 years of just success stories and just these powerful God moments. But that was probably one of the coolest and powerful moments I've ever been through.
I love it about having a moment in a graveyard with someone that desperately needs help, it's life or death at this point because they're grieving.
Yeah.
People don't become addicts just because.
Right.
There's a reason why they have something in them that's attracted to a chemical that alters their mind. They want to be something else. They want the escape. They want to freedom. I mean, and so I love how you brought that into play. In the fun hubbub of life, it's busy, busy, busy. It's more busier than ever. We're 80s kids. I mean, I feel like I get whiplash every day with what my kids and I and the busy stuff. What do you do, Steven, to unplug, to get back to you and not feel that burnout or that pressure of life?
So I think the biggest thing, and you touched on it, the phone. I can very easily find myself scrolling for hours. I think it's important to have time limits on my apps, to where I cannot go past those time limits because that's me holding myself accountable. I try to read some type of scripture every day or some type of just motivational, like I said, I always try to, fuel myself with something that's going to better me. I touched on the gym. The gym's important. I feel like having a healthy, relationship with being able to have days where I'm with the guys, and with the spouse, just having healthy communication, being vulnerable, transparent, and honest. There's different things that come up. Obviously, days are different. Some days are structured a little bit differently. I'm on the road sometimes. My routine has to adapt and change based on where I am. But I always try to keep those few basic principles alive, and just, making sure I make time for prayer and, and meditation is really, really big for me. I love to just kind of zone out and let my mind take me, or maybe it's not taking me anywhere and I'm just sitting there in silence,
You're centering yourself.
Yeah. But I've been open to so many like modalities and just learning about faith and just, like I said, I like to try new things, to see what I like and what doesn't work.
And it's so important with the industry that you're in.
Oh yeah.
Because they can get very heavy. Because you can't save them all.
Right.
There's really rough days and you don't know if they're going to get through it. And you've got to have that time where you're like, it's not about me at this point, it's them.
Right.
But I need time for myself. I got to make sure that I'm strong enough to help my team, the people that you're helping. The last but not least, I ask every guest on my podcast about best advice, quote, something that you've written yourself or heard one time and it just stuck and it helped you in your journey to tell your story to inspire infinite growth.
I feel like for me, there's been every year I like to set goals for myself, whether they're short-term, long-term goals. Every year there seems to be distractions. I think I talked to you about this. There was a video I saw on LinkedIn the other day, this German Shepherd in the hockey net as the goalie. And the guy's shooting, different types of balls at the dog and he's not even flinching. And until the guy hits the hockey puck, that's when the dog snatches it. What it was trying to say is stay focused on the goals, stay focused on the prize ahead. There's going to be so many distractions along the way. It's up to you to kind of analyze which ones are distractions and which ones aren't. I love that. I love that outlook on life because it's so true, at least, for me with where I've been, but the quote, I sent it to you.
Yeah, I have it if you want me to read it.
Yeah, could you read it? Because I don't know what word for word it was.
Yes, I do.
So yeah. So it was Confucius. So our greatest glory is never in failing, but it's in rising in every time we fall. And for me, I've fallen flat on my face so many times in my life, and I could, blame others or I could take responsibility, and like I said, whenever I got sober, it was just like I had a whole different perception shift on life and just being able to see the good in things when they're bad, or, just being able to have a different outlook on life. But I feel like we all fall at some point or another in our life. Some of us fall more often than others, and it just comes down to, do you want to continue to repeat the insanity of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results? Or do you want to try to get uncomfortable and do something different? That's just how I try to live my life today.
I love it. All right. So as we leave, our time is ended. It went by so fast.
Yes, it did.
I thank you, Steven, for being very open to tell your story. As we close, give us a little bit about your detox center, the name, where it's located, how they can reach out. I'll put it in the show notes so that if someone listened today, that if they reached out to this podcast, it's because they need someone like you. And since they feel a connection, it's okay. Go to Tampa. Go get help in Tampa. I'm cool with that. Just make sure you let them know that you heard it from Unplug with Mel.
Exactly. So the name of the detox is Port Charlotte Detox. It's about an hour south of Tampa Bay. We just found such a need there in that area. It's a very underserved area. There's no sort of resources whatsoever. So, the need was there. So we opened and we kind of went full steam ahead. And we really focus on patient-centered care, right? Outcomes are so important to me. I want to have a product that works, because if it's not working, I'm not doing something right. So, I try to employ the best people possible to have the best possible outcomes, because I realize that I can't do all this on my own. I need a strong staff behind me to support the mission, and to continue to press forward and have good outcomes. But we're super small and intimate. We're only 10 beds, detox and residential levels of care. So the average length of stay is anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, just depending on what the individual needs. But we try to tailor, the treatment model to what that individual needs by meeting them where they're at. And it's not like a one size fits all model. We're small enough to be able to do that. So if it's a situation like a professional, right, where they need access to their laptop and their phone, well, guess what? We have a private room where you're allowed to continue to work if you're a remote worker, or, obviously it's case by case, right? But I try to meet someone where they're at based on what they need. And we've had a lot of good success. So in our first year open, we had about 120 patients that came in. And after doing our data analysis, 85 of those 120 were still sober after 90 days, which is astounding, based on industry standards and, success rates of people entering for treatment. So we're onto something. We're making headway in this space, and I just want to continue to grow it and expand and open in multiple different locations and continue to adapt the same model that we've opened with.
I love it. So again, for the readers and listeners and audience, I'll put that in the show notes of how to reach out to Steven. He's also on LinkedIn, because that's how we found each other.
Yes.
You got a friend for life now, Steven. I do appreciate you taking this hour to be with Unplug with Mel. And I look forward to following your journey of success. And I can't wait to see you in every state needs a detox like that.
No,
I love how you said where you meet them where they're at. You're not chasing them. They don't have to go the extra mile. They are where they are, and you're going to bring those resources to them. So thank you very much for telling your story.
Thank you for inviting me on this. And I have some more guests that I would like to bring to the table for you that are inspiring people in my life. And we're going to blow your podcast up. I love it. I love your mission. I love the
running of the podcast later on this year. And so bring the guests, because this is the part of the podcast. Everyone has a story.
Yes.
Everyone came from somewhere. You can hear us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts.